Okay. So have you ever felt like you're stuck, kind of like on a hamster wheel with these diets?
Yeah.
You try one after another and you just end up back where you started.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's really easy to get caught up in all the hype, you know.
Yeah, for sure. And that's kind of where this deep dive comes in, right? We're
Yeah.
really trying to look into like the actual science behind losing fat and cutting through all the noise about the trendy diets to figure out what actually works.
And sometimes, honestly, the truth is a lot simpler than we think.
Ooh, I like that. Okay, so first, we've got all these sources on like the popular diets, things you hear about all the time, keto, intermittent fasting, even going vegan. Like on the surface, they sound totally different, but these sources found some really interesting connections.
Yeah, it is fascinating because, all these diets, they always sound like they're something totally new and revolutionary, but they really often work or don't work for the same reasons because they're focused on what you eat instead of how much.
Interesting. So it's not just about like cutting out carbs or like only drinking protein shakes.
Well, not really. Like, look at keto. People love keto.
Yeah.
You're cutting carbs, which that by itself, it can lead to eating less calories, but people think they can just eat like unlimited bacon and stuff.
No, bacon's good fat. Right.
Right, exactly. But even good fat still has calories.
Oh, true.
And those calories, they add up fast.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, so I'm starting to see the bigger picture now. So if it's not just about the type of food we're eating, is there like some sort of universal fat loss code that we're all missing here?
This one source, it actually called it that, the fat loss code. But honestly, it's not really a code, it's more of a principle. Calories in versus calories out.
Okay, that does sound pretty straightforward. So walk me through it.
Okay, so think of your body like a car, okay? It needs fuel to run, and that fuel is calories. So if you eat more calories than you burn, your body's like, okay, I'm going to store this extra fuel in the tank for later. That's your fat. But if you eat fewer calories than you're burning, that's when your body starts tapping into those fat stores for energy.
So it's like dipping into those emergency reserves when you've driven a bit further than you expected.
Exactly. And that applies no matter what type of diet you're on, really.
Wow, okay. So even if I'm eating like super healthy, all veggies, lean protein, all that, I could still gain weight if I'm eating too much. Yeah.
Unfortunately, yeah. That's the hard truth. And that's what a lot of these trendy diets, they don't really emphasize that enough. They tell you what to cut out, but they don't always talk about the total number of calories you're eating.
Which is probably why it feels like so many people, they have trouble seeing results that last. A few of these sources talked about how most of these restrictive diets, they're just not doable long term. We can't just cut out entire food groups forever, right?
Oh, it's really hard. One source even called it the diet roller coaster. You're either like totally on the plan, being super strict, or you're off of it and you just feel guilty and defeated. It just creates this bad cycle.
Yeah, it's like a never-ending cycle. So if these trendy diets aren't the answer, where do we go from here? I mean, we can't just exist in a calorie deficit forever, right?
Yeah, I mean, being miserable and constantly depriving yourself, that's definitely not the answer. It's not enjoyable, and it's not really sustainable either. It's really more about finding like a balance, something that works with your body, not against it,
So how do we break free from that diet roller coaster? How do we find that like sweet spot?
Well, this next source, it goes into kind of the psychology behind our eating habits. And it's pretty interesting, actually. Like, it says that we should try to think about nourishing our bodies with food that's good for us and tastes good too, instead of looking at food like it's the enemy.
That's interesting because usually when I hear the word diet, I just think about all the things I can't have. Not really, like enjoying myself.
Exactly, and that's where a lot of people get tripped up, because if you're constantly restricting yourself, it can make you crave things even more, and then you end up falling off the wagon. But if you just let yourself enjoy those off-limits foods sometimes in moderation as like a normal part of a balanced approach.
It's less about good foods and bad foods and more about making smarter choices.
Right. And this source, it really stressed how important it is to change your mindset. It's not about these like crazy overnight changes where you completely overhaul your entire life. It's about just making small changes, little by little.
Like what? Give me an example.
Okay, so one example they gave was switching from sugary drinks to water, or like unsweetened tea. It seems like a really small thing, but it can actually make a big difference in how many calories you're taking in.
Oh yeah, that makes sense. They also talked about how important it is to always have healthy snacks, right?
Yeah.
So you're not as tempted to just grab a bag of chips when you get hungry.
Yes, exactly. It's about like setting yourself up for success. If you surround yourself with nutritious foods that you can easily grab, it helps you make healthier choices without really having to even think about it.
Okay, I like that. So what about exercise? Because exercise burns calories. So wouldn't that be like the key to creating a bigger calorie deficit?
Well, exercise definitely has a lot of benefits, but maybe not for the reasons you think. Because even though it does burn calories, it shouldn't be the main way you try to create a calorie deficit. This one source said that a good approach that you can actually stick with needs to include both diet and exercise. They kind of work together.
Okay, so it's more about the big picture, like making some changes to your lifestyle that include both of those things.
Yeah.
But I feel like everyone always says you have to earn dessert by working out extra hard.
Yeah, I get that. I've heard that too. But we gotta kind of change how we think about it. Because this source was saying that if you look at exercise as like a punishment for something you ate, it can actually give you a bad relationship with food and exercise. Both. It's healthier to think of exercise as a celebration of what your body can do, you know?
That is a good way to look at it.
Yeah.
I love that. So instead of thinking about it like, ugh, I have to go to the gym, or it's a punishment, we should look at it like, I'm taking care of my body for my physical health and my mental health.
Exactly. And exercise, it does way more than just burn calories. Like this next source we looked at, it went into how great strength training can be. It can be a real game changer, actually.
Strength training, huh? Okay, I'm listening. See, I've always just done cardio because I thought that was the best way to burn calories.
Yeah, cardio is good for sure, but this source was explaining how when you do strength training, it helps you build muscle. And muscle burns more calories than fat does.
Oh, interesting.
So basically, the more muscle you have, the more calories you burn, even when you're just sitting around not working out. Pretty cool, right?
Okay, that does sound kind of game-changing, actually. So we're talking about changing how we think about food and finding ways to manage our calories that we can actually stick with and adding in some strength training. What else did these sources say is important if we want to see results that last?
Well, this last source made a really good point that I think kind of brings everything together. It said, it's more important to focus on making progress than trying to be perfect.
Because we're human, right? Not robots.
Exactly. You're going to have days where you don't hit your calorie goals perfectly. You're going to have days where, you have that extra slice of cake. And that's totally fine. It's a journey.
Not a sprint.
Right. This source really emphasized that it's all about the big picture.
So instead of like beating yourself up when you slip up,
Yeah.
you should just think of it as a learning experience and move on.
Exactly. Like this whole deep dive, it wasn't about trying to find some quick fix or tell you to try some crazy restrictive diet. It was about finding changes that are actually doable, changes you can maintain so you can actually reach your goals.
This has been great. Really eye-opening. I love how we talked about fat loss in a way that's empowering, not, all about guilt and deprivation.
Right. It shouldn't feel like a punishment.
So to wrap things up, what's like one important thing you want our listeners to take away from all of this?
I'd say focus on building habits that are actually healthy, habits that work for you and your life. Ditch that all or nothing mindset that a lot of those fad diets promote. And just remember that if you want to lose fat and keep it off, you got to find things you can actually stick with.
Awesome. So listeners, remember, ditch the diet mentality and start building a healthier relationship with food and your body. Remember, knowledge is power. Keep learning, keep trying things out, and keep that fire burning. Until next time on The Deep Dive, keep exploring.